Hey everyone, my name's Carlin. Welcome back to my channel. Tonight's flow is all about the hips and the hamstrings, working to find a balance between flexibility and strength. And we do this to prevent injuries, to work out smarter, to relieve stress in the muscles and the joints, to prevent any imbalances between the different muscle groups in the body, and even to ease the stress on our muscles of tasks just like sitting in a desk or sitting in a car. So we are going to flow through some strengthening postures for the hips and hamstrings, some more flexibility focused postures. So this will be a quick practice that will leave your hips and your hamstrings feeling good. So when you're ready, we'll get started in a seated position at the top of the mat. So setting up in Sukhasana, easy seat. Just make sure you take note of what ankle is on top. You'll just cross the ankles or the legs on top of one another. And just take note right now, my left is on top, so we'll eventually switch that, so just make sure you notice. Take a breath here. Find a quiet moment to come into this space. And we'll get right into it, inhaling to lift your fingertips up to the sky. And exhale, folding forward. Really keep those sits bones planted on the mat. Walking the fingertips forward. Depending on which leg or ankle you have on top, you'll start to feel this in one of your hips. I'm feeling it much more in my right. And then from here, just walk your hands over to the right side, stretch out the side body a little bit. And then come back through center and take it to the left side. Stretch out the right side body. And then come back through center and hold for just another breath. Pressing your hips and your fingertips in opposite directions. Feel that opposite energy, stretch the body even more. And then walk your fingertips back into center and just gently switch the cross of your legs. So I'll have my right ankle on top of my left ankle this time. One side might feel a little bit funkier than the other. And then inhale, reach the fingertips up. And exhale, again, fold forward. And you'll feel this probably in the opposite hip. Just breathing here. And then moving to the right side body stretch just for a moment. And then again, moving to the left. And then coming back through center and stay there. Take a couple breaths. Fingertips and hips in opposite directions. Maybe the forehead touches the mat. If it does, just let it hang. And then walk the hands back into the center of the body. Uncross the legs and we'll come to a tabletop position. Stacking the wrists underneath the shoulders and the knees underneath the hips. Just find 3 rounds of cat-cow here. Inhaling, drop the belly, lift the gaze. Exhale, tuck the chin around through the spine. I hardly ever complete a yoga practice without some cat-cows. One more round. And then as you're ready, send the right foot back. Just staying here, maybe taking some rocks back and forth. Stretch out the back of the right leg. Bring the shoulders past the wrists. Stretch out the wrists a little bit. And then we'll bring our focus to the legs. So get really active through your right leg. Flex all of the muscles in the leg. Pull the quadricep away from the knee. And then keeping that foot flexed, lift the foot just to hip height. And notice if you arched in the low back and really tilt the pelvis, pull the belly button into the navel to keep that back nice and firm. And then from here, if you feel really strong and long in the leg, maybe you take the left fingertips out in front of you, adding a balance challenge here using the core. Don't forget about that right leg. Keep it nice and strong. 5, 4, 3, 2, on 1, bring the left hand down, bring the right knee down, and we'll take that to the other side. Maybe find a quick round of cat-cow in between sides. And then step the left foot back. Again, take some rocks. We'll hit some other strengthening and stretching in other parts of the body, even though we're focusing really on the leg here, the upper part of the leg. And then from here, flex that left foot strongly, get really active through all of the muscles in the left leg. Imagine your quadricep pulling up away from your knee. And then when you're ready, lift that left leg to hip height. Really strong here. Don't back bend. Keep that spine nice and long. Keeping the low back nice and flat. And when you feel long and strong, maybe take your right fingertips out in front of you. Don't forget about that left leg, really powerful here for 5, 4, 3, 2, on 1, lower the right hand down, lower the left knee down, and then walk the hands slightly forward of the shoulders, wide through the fingertips, really spread them out, press into all 10 fingertips, especially the thumb and the index fingers. And then tuck the toes, lift the hips, find your downward facing dog, upside down V shape. Find a little bit of movement in your down dog, walk your dog, bending through one knee at a time, reaching one heel at a time towards the ground, waking up the entire leg here, still active through the core. One more breath. And then from here, just drop the knees. Send the knees out as wide as you can. Bring the big toes to touch and sink the hips back towards the heels, child's pose. So keeping the knees separated here, maybe they come out to opposite edges of the mat. So if you have tight hips, this might feel a little bit more difficult. Your heels and your seat might not make contact, but that's okay. Just breathe. Keep visualizing the hips moving back. And just take another breath or two here. And when you're ready, we'll all meet in downward facing dog. And from your downward facing dog, take an inhale and lift your right leg to the sky. Stretch out the front of that right hip. And as you lift the right heel higher, reach the left heel towards the ground, stretching out the left calf and the back of the left leg. One more inhale here, lift a little bit higher. And on your exhale, take your knee into your nose and step your right foot in between your hands. So we'll stay low here in a low runner's lunge. Maybe tent the fingertips or come down to your fists if you can't come all the way down to the heel of the hand. And just take some movement here. Again, staying nice and low. You'll really feel the left hip flexor and the right hip. Maybe draw some circles, move it around. Find like an up dog in the chest, shining the heart forward, dropping the pelvis. Just a couple more breaths here. Taking time to lubricate the hip. And then activating our strength here. Bringing your hands to your thigh, pressing into the back toes and the heel of the right foot. Eventually bring your hands to your hips, really press into that back leg. Bring your hand behind your thigh and really press your thigh into your hand. And then from here, reach the fingertips up to the sky and you're in crescent lunge. Really strong here. The legs are active. Don't let anything get loose. Relax your shoulders. Maybe take your palms together. Take your gaze up towards your hands. One more breath here. And then bring your hands back to your hips. Step your left foot in a little bit closer to your right. And then just plant your left foot completely on the ground so you're in a warrior one. Just hold in this warrior one, pulling right hip back, left hip forward. Keeping the hands at the hips, really strong through the legs. And then the next time you inhale, straighten through the front leg, stand up nice and tall. Exhale, fold forward, hinging at the hips. Keep a micro bend in the front leg, the front knee rather. And either bring your arms down to the mat, framing the foot with the hands. If your hands don't touch the mat, no worries. Maybe keep them at your hip, bring them to your shin, whatever would feel best. Stretching out the right hamstring, but also finding strength in this posture, really pressing into both of the heels, both strong and flexible through the legs. Wherever you are, take an inhale and look up halfway. Keep your neck nice and long. Pull the right hip even farther back. Notice how that stretch intensifies. One more breath in. And on your exhale, release, let it go. Folding forward. Two more breaths. And as you're ready, start to bend back into the right knee. Bring the left toes back just a couple inches, and then drop the back knee, untuck the toes. Again, find that up dog in the chest. Really press the top of the left knee towards the right heel. You'll feel your left hip flexor light up. Couple breaths here. And as you're ready, start to walk the hands back, straighten the front leg, find your half split. You might need to walk that heel slightly forward, keeping the left hip right over the left knee. Find length in your spine here. And on your exhale, fold forward. Two breaths. And then walk the hands forward, bend back into the right knee. Plant the hands to frame the right foot. Tuck the left toes, lift the left knee off of the ground. And then send your right foot back and you're in your high plank. Take a big breath in. And on your exhale, lower all the way down to the belly. Untucking the toes. Inhale, baby cobra. Exhale, tuck the toes, lift the hips, downward facing dog. And we'll take all that on the other side. Taking an inhale to lift the left leg up to the sky. Stretch out the front of the left hip. And as you reach the left heel, pull the right heel towards the ground, stretching the back of the right leg. One more big breath in here. And on your exhale, bring your left knee in towards your nose, eventually stepping it in between the hands, staying low here in your low runner's lunge. Find a little bit of movement here, up dog in the chest, shining the heart forward, moving the hip back and forth. Couple more breaths. Nice and stretchy here. And then we're going to strengthen. Really strong, pressing into the left heel and the right foot, the right toes rather. And then bring the hands up to the left thigh. Bring your hands to your hips, strong core. Press your hand into your thigh and your thigh back into your hand. And then maybe lift the fingertips up. Find your crescent lunge. Deep breaths. Strong legs. They're going to get tired, but it's okay. Again, maybe you bring the palms to touch. Maybe you take your gaze up to the sky. And then bring your hands to your hips. Step your right foot in just a couple inches so the foot is flat and the toes face the top right corner of the mat. You're in warrior one, left hip back, right hip forward. Really strong here. And then the next time you inhale, straighten through the front leg, reach up, get a little bit taller. And then exhale, hinge at the hips to fold forward. Stretching the left hamstring this time. Your hands can frame your front foot. They can stay on your hips. You can come behind the back, whatever feels best. Again, keep pulling that left hip back and notice how that intensifies the stretch in the left hamstring. And the next time you inhale, come on to the tips of the fingers or bring your hands to your hips. Looking forward, lengthening the spine. And exhale, fold a little bit deeper. Couple breaths here. Just one more. And then gradually you'll start to bend back into the left knee, send the right toes back, drop the back knee, untuck the toes. Go ahead and bring your hands to your shins, to your thigh. Take a couple breaths here, really press that hip flexor towards the left heel. And then frame the front foot once more, straighten the front leg. Hips back, half split. So you might need to take the heel slightly forward or the right knee slightly back to find your alignment with your knee underneath your hip. And when you inhale, lengthen through the spine. And then as you exhale, fold forward. Breathing here. And as you're ready, start to walk the hands forward, bend back into the left knee, plant the hands, tuck the right toes, lift the right knee off of the mat, step your left foot back to meet it, take an inhale in your plank pose, on your exhale, lower all the way down to the belly, untuck the toes, inhale, lift up, baby cobra, exhale, downward facing dog. And I'll switch sides for our next standing sequence, just for viewing purposes. Bring your big toes to touch, little gap in the heels. Inhale, lift your right leg up to the sky. Exhale, bend the right knee, open the right hip, stacking it over the left hip. Keep your shoulders square to the mat, really press into the right hand, and draw some big circles with the right knee, as large as you can. And then once you've made 3 big circles, make 3 big circles in the opposite direction. And then come back to your three-legged dog. Lift the right leg a little bit higher. And then plant the right foot in between the hands, warrior two. Inhaling to rise. Notice how your pelvis and your hips are nice and open towards the side of the mat. Pressing that right knee towards the pinky edge side of the right foot. We're really focusing on the legs here, so don't worry so much about your gaze. Maybe even bring your hands to heart center and just focus on that openness towards the long edge of the mat. 3 more breaths. Now bring your arms back out to a T, straight in the front leg, and we'll find triangle pose. Right fingertips forward, left hip back, and when you can no longer reach forward, bring your right hand to your right shin, reach your left fingertips to the sky. Again, openness in the hips here. So as you bring your right hand down, if you come all the way down to the floor and you start to close off, you're no longer opening the hip. So bring those right fingertips up as high as you need to, focusing on this openness. Just 2 more breaths. Strong, steady breathing. And then bend back into the right knee. Find your warrior two. Scooch your right foot closer to the right edge of the mat and cartwheel the hands to the inside of the right foot. Come on to the left toes and you're in your lizard pose. So active lizard here to start. Really strong through the legs. Take some rock side to side. Maybe stay in stillness. Press the mat away from you. And then we'll make this a little bit more passive. Option to drop the back knee and untuck the toes. Option to come down to the forearms. If you come here, really focus on hugging that right knee in towards the right shoulder. And then if you'd like a little bit more opening in the outer hip, you can stay on your left forearm or your left palm. Come to the pinky edge side of the right foot and use your right hand to gently press the right knee away from you. Breath in the outer hip. Slow and steady. Two more breaths. And if you opened that hip, start to come back to center. Drop the back knee if you haven't done so already and come back onto the palms. From here, we'll transition right to lizard pose, to pigeon pose, different animal. And then take your right foot, bring it towards your left wrist, and you can even bring the heel in a little bit closer to the center of the body if that angle feels better. And eventually come onto the right hip. Make sure that left leg is nice and long behind you, an extension of the hip. You'll feel this in your left hip flexor and your right hip joint. Take a breath upright. And then as you exhale, slowly lower down, resting pigeon pose. Maybe you come onto the forearms. You can always take a figure 4 on the back. If the ground feels really far away or just a little bit too far away, stack your fists on top of one another and rest your forehead on your top fist. This is where household items are also great to have. You can stick a blanket or a pillow right underneath that right hip to bring the mat a little bit closer to you. Some extra support cushion. Focus on your breath here. The breath is the gateway to increasing our flexibility and working through strengthening poses. As you start to settle in, you might come a little bit deeper if your hips are ready for it. Five more breaths. Walk your hands back into the center of the body, sitting upright in your pigeon pose. And then send all of your weight into your right hip and send your left leg out towards the top left corner of the mat. Finding a seated tree pose, Janu Shirshasana, right foot to the inside of the left thigh. Square the torso so it's right over the left leg. Inhale, reach up. And exhale, fold. Right hip is open, stretching the left hamstring. Find length in the side body here. And again, see if you can pull that left hip back and see how that intensifies the stretch. Wherever you go, take your breath with you. Three more. Make your way back to a seated position. Cross the right leg under or on top of the left. Plant the hands and just come right back to your downward facing dog. And I'm going to switch sides last time. And we'll take that on the other side. Big toes come to touch, little gap in the heels. Inhale, lift the left leg up. Exhale, open that left hip, bending the left knee, stacking it over right. And draw 3 big circles with the left knee. Again, shoulders are square towards the ground, really pressing to the left hand. Don't let all of your weight go into the right. And then take the circles in the opposite direction. Inhale, come back through 3-legged dog. Exhale, step the left foot in between the hands, rising up, warrior 2. Again, pelvis and hips are nice and open towards the long edge of the mat, but at the same time, you're pressing that left knee towards the pinky edge side of the left foot. Maybe you just keep your hands at your heart for this warrior 2. Focus is in the hips, the hamstrings, the inner thighs, the legs really. Three more breaths. And after your third breath, bring your arms to a T, straighten through the front leg, reach the left fingertips forward and the right hip back. And before you come down, come as far forward as you can. And then bring the left hand just down to the shin, reach the right fingertips up. Again, if the shin is too far, hover the left fingertips a little bit higher. This is all about being open. Strong in the legs here. 2 more breaths. Bend to the left knee, come back to warrior 2 for just a breath. Toe heel that left foot towards the left edge of the mat. Cartwheel the hands, spin onto the ball of the right foot. And you're in your active lizard pose here. Taking some rock side to side. Really pressing the hands into the mat, pressing it away from you. And then as you're ready, you'll come into a more passive stretch here, bringing the right knee to the ground, untucking the right toes. Maybe you stay here, the side might feel a little bit different, probably will feel different than your last side. If you want, you can come down to the forearms if that's accessible. Just keep hugging that left knee in towards the left shoulder. And then if you want that outer hip stretch, you can keep the right forearm or the right palm on the mat. Come to the pinky edge side of the left foot and use the left hand to gently press the left knee away from you. Deep breaths. This is really intense for the hips. This is quite the stretch. Your breath will get you through it. We'll eventually make our way back through center if you haven't done so already. Drop that back knee to the ground, come back onto the palms, and then just toe heel the left foot towards the right wrist. Again, you can bring the heel closer into the center of the body if that angle would feel better. The shin does not have to be parallel to the top edge of the mat. And then make sure that right leg is nice and long behind you. Take a couple breaths upright here, really sink the left hip towards the ground. And as you're ready, walk the fingertips forward, settle into your resting pigeon pose. Notice the difference on this side, and remember that we're looking for a balance and sensation on each side, not necessarily physical appearance. So maybe on this side you grab that blanket or that pillow and you place it underneath the left hip. Maybe on this side you remove some props, you get a little bit deeper to find that same sensation. Again, you can stack the fists and rest your forehead on your top fist. And as you feel ready, feel free to go deeper, so long as you bring your breath with you. Using my breath here to create space in the left hip and the right hip flexor. Anywhere that you feel tension in the body. Just another breath here. Taking your time to come out of the posture, walking the hands back into the center of the body, sitting upright, no rush. And then taking your weight into your left hip and bringing your right leg to the top right corner of the mat. Janu Shirshasana, seated tree pose. Take your left foot to the inside of the right thigh and square your torso and your hips right over your right leg. Inhale, lift up. Exhale, hinge and fold. So you do have the option to bend the knee, but if you really want to stretch the hamstring, keep the leg as straight and as strong as possible. Just a little micro bend in the right knee. You don't have to touch the foot, just keep reaching in that direction. 5 breaths. Again, take your time to come out of this, gradually stacking your shoulders back over your hips. And we'll come to standing one final time at the top of the mat, bringing the left foot out to the left side of the mat and the right foot out to the right side of the mat. Heels will face in and toes will face out. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, hands come through heart center. As you sink the hips down, imagine that you're sliding down a wall, sending the knees out over the second or third toe. And then eventually you're in Malasana, bringing your elbows into your knees and pressing your knees back into your elbows. And as you sink in here, try not to sink too low. See if you can lift a couple inches, really press into the heels. Using the strength of your hips, your glutes, your abdomen to hold you up. All of these muscles work together. They work in pairs, and triplets and quadruplets. And when there's imbalances, that throws off the other muscles that work with said muscle groups. Just another couple breaths here. Maybe for these last few here, hold your hands out in front of you like you're holding a beach ball. Maybe lift a little bit higher, really challenge yourself. Take one more deep breath in. And on your exhale, come onto your seat. Bring the soles of the feet to touch. Open the feet up like a book. Take your thumbs to the arches of the feet. Give yourself a little massage here. Let the knees go out wide. Inhale, lift up. Exhale, fold forward, Baddha Konasana. Otherwise known as butterfly in gym class. Maybe spread your wings and fly. 8 breaths. One more breath. Awesome, and we'll all meet on our backs, setting up for a round of back bends. So coming onto the back, planting the feet, hips width distance apart, and then knees will face up towards the sky. Arms will come long at your sides, palms facing down. Go ahead and flex the left foot and cross that left ankle over the right knee or thigh. So we're finding a figure 4 here. We're going to find a figure 4 bridge lift. So that left knee, that's what that is. The left knee is pressing away from the center of the body to open that hip. And we're going to be really active through the right glute here by really pressing into the right heel. Take an inhale, press into the hands, press into the right heel, and lift the hips up to the sky. So we're opening the left hip and we're really isolating that right side, using the strength in our glute and our hamstrings to hold us up here. Maybe lift a little bit higher for 5, 4, 3, 2, on 1, slowly lower down. Stay here in this figure 4 pose for just an extra breath. Maybe roll out the ankle. And then bring the left foot back down to meet the right, and we'll take that on the other side. This time flexing the right foot, crossing the right ankle over the left knee or thigh. Take a couple breaths here just to really press that right knee away from the center of the body. That'll open the right hip. And then again, we're recruiting our left glute here, working with our abs, our low back, and our hamstrings to lift us up. So press into the hands, press into the left heel. Inhale, lift up, bridge pose. Holding here for 5, 4, lift a little bit higher for 3, 2, on 1, slowly lower down. Stay in this figure 4 for just an extra breath. And then bring the right knee down to meet the left. Windshield wiper the legs side to side. Release the low back. And as you're ready, hug the knees into the chest. Give yourself a squeeze. Cross that right leg over the left leg. No space in between the inner thighs here. Really squeeze everything in. Right knee and left knee are stacked right on top of each other. And then grab onto the feet with the hands. So your right foot will be in your left hand, and your left foot will be in your right hand. And then slowly start to pull your feet towards your body, closer to the mat. So my right leg is on top right now of my left leg. And I'm feeling this in my right hip. So whichever leg is you crossed on top is where you'll feel in the hip. Couple deep breaths. Two more. Unwind the legs and switch the cross of the legs. So this time the left leg crosses on top of the right. Squeeze the inner thighs together, squeeze the knees together, and then grab onto the feet with opposite hands and pull the feet in towards the body. Really feeling this in the outer hip here. 2 more breaths. Slowly unwind the legs. One final stretch here, happy baby. Take the knees in towards the armpits. Grab onto the inside or outside edges of the feet with the hands. Take some rock side to side here, keeping the sacrum planted on the mat. If you want a little bit more in the hamstrings, maybe straighten through one leg at a time. Nice and gentle here, slowing down the breath. And when you're ready, hug your knees back into your chest. Give yourself one final squeeze. And then let everything go, legs and arms out long. Find your Shavasana, final resting pose. Do a scan of the body. Notice what you feel, what you don't feel. Thoughts, sensations, tensions, what feels neutral. Labeling none of it as good or bad, just acknowledging before settling into your rest. Let your legs get really heavy here. You can stay here as long as you'd like in your final resting pose, eventually continuing your day with strong and flexible hips and hamstrings. Thank you so much for practicing with me. Namaste.